So here's what's going on. Steve Jobs has this awesome commencement, and it connects to my whole brain blast last night because he talks about 3 stories in this commencement address. All right, 3 stories. Out of order because it works better with this format. But one of them is about love and loss. He started with Wozniacki in some garage in whatever year, Apple, and then it grew it to like a $2 billion company. But then there was some other CEO. I don't know how that whole system worked, but they didn't have the same visions, got kicked out of his love, his dream that he built from the ground up. And then he's like, oh, he loved this project. He loses it all. But then he starts this company Next, and also Pixar. Pixar's the biggest animation studio. Next gets bought by Apple, so he ends up circling back, just crushing it, as everyone knows. But he's all about like, hey, everything should just be focused on what you love, because that's what's going to keep you grinding day in and day out. And that's why I like this podcast, because it's just fucking love doing it. So death. He talks about death and how it's kind of sad because he's talking about how he cheated death because he had whatever pancreatic cancer, and then the doctor looked at the microscope and he's like, oh my God, it's curable by surgery. That is such a rare form. But then it comes back and, you know, that happens. But he talks about how it's like people live this life of, oh, it goes on forever. Life's so long. But he took it and like, he'd look in the mirror every single day. He's like, if today was my last day, would I be satisfied? And if his answer is no enough times in a row, then he's like, all right, I got to change the fucking path that I'm on. And so, yeah, he just had this constant self-check and whatever. Third point, this is the one that connects to my whole brain blast. So for those of you that don't know, he was an orphan. So his birth mother wanted to give him up, wanted to give him to this successful doctor lawyer family. They were going to adopt him. But then they realized that Steve was going to be a guy and not a girl, and they wanted a girl. So they passed him up. God. Another family was like, hey, we have this boy with no home. Will you take him on? But Steve's birth mother was like, I don't want them taking my child because they didn't go to college, whatever. And they made the promise, like, Steve's going to go to college. We'll make sure he gets there. He finally gets to college. He goes to Reed College. And he only lasts 6 months. And he's like, all right, I'm dropping out. He literally drops out of school 6 months in. But he still stays around campus, just auditing classes, crashing on dorm room floors with friends for 18 months. So he's just learning and absorbing, and he doesn't have to take these required classes. And one of the classes he stumbles into is calligraphy. And at the time, Reed had one of the best calligraphy programs in the world. Then Steve, years and years later, with Apple, now he has fonts. And fonts changes the game, because now the fucking shitty nerd computer stuff is beautiful and elegant for everyone else to use. So he makes the point that you can't connect the dots going forward. Like it'd be a stupid decision to take that calligraphy class as whatever, a 18-year-old. Like what value does that add? But later, 20 years down the line, by chance, seemingly, it all makes sense. And that's what propelled Apple to such great levels. So you can only connect the dots looking back.
Yeah.
So that's why he's all about just exploring, just live this fucking wild experimental life, following whatever you love, and it'll all make sense coming back.